Hey guys, welcome to another Friday Night Restoration. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, it's something I came up with a few years back when I was working on some lengthy, frustrating projects. The idea being it's a project that gets done in one part, no nonsense. Get in there, get it done, get it working. No 25-part, 5-year series, just one installment. We get it running at the end. Last time we did a TV, this time we're doing a radio. This is one I got at an ARCI, Antique Radio Club of Illinois, Radio Fest. That's a swap meet they do once a year. I used to record footage at them, but I haven't been going too much lately. Hopefully that will change soon. And often I go there just to see stuff and to catch up with some familiar faces and maybe meet some new people. But I did buy a radio on this occasion for a few reasons. One, I just wanted to buy something, and two, it was reasonably priced and at least at the time I put my hand on it, complete. Get to that in a moment. I think it was listed for 20 bucks. It is an AM only radio, I do believe. It's been a few years since I got it, so my memory's a little rusty. It is a Sears Roebuck, also known as Airline. I did print out the service info. There are a bunch of similar models. I don't recall exactly which one this is. I think it's the 7020. We shall see. It is an All-American 5. I haven't done one of these in a while. What does that mean? Well, actually that's not quite true. It's an All-American 6. There are 6 tubes, and it is series strong and quite possibly a hot chassis, so no power transformer. This is the type of radio that you often hear recommended to beginners. It's a basic radio. It's AM only, fairly straightforward circuitry. I think it will be a simple, enjoyable project. However, I've been saying that a lot lately, and I've been getting burned every time. Like the Philco 90, I thought would be a quick, fun project, as we're heading into part 12 or 13, I think. But this won't be that way. This we're going to get done in one shot. All right, so it's a neat little radio. So what appealed to me, it's a cool, clean Art Deco design, kind of an oval veneered box with this black base on it and plastic insert, and often this plastic will get really distorted. Well, let me zoom in and give you a closer look at it. There we go. So the condition is great. No need to refinish. It's veneered wood, curved, and often these can get damaged fairly easily. Often it's rather thin. And even more what appealed to me was the plastic. Very often this early plastic is tenite or some such, and they really horribly shrink and warp and crack and disintegrate over time. It's in perfect condition. It also has some type of push button pre-select not working. That could be fun to get going again. Looks like we're missing the dial glass. I don't think I'd realize that when I got it. That we won't be doing in this installment. Hopefully it fell off inside the radio or something. I don't have any sheet glass handy, but that should be fairly straightforward. The tuning works, so we don't have to restring the dial. That's a great thing. Don't know what all these controls do. So, I had mentioned that this was complete when I put my hand on it. Yes, all the knobs were there when I bought this for 20 bucks. However, as I turned to walk away, the seller came running up to me and said, "Oh, geez, I forgot. I already sold just the knobs to someone else." He handed me 10 bucks back and plucked off the knobs before I could really react or respond to it. Needless to say, I was not too pleased with that outcome. I was tired, it was hot, I think I was about ready to go home, so I just said, oh well. I figured it was a fairly common radio, the knobs wouldn't be too hard to find. Not so much. However, I did eventually get some knobs that are basically correct. Around here somewhere. Now it turns out that there are vendors that specialize just in knobs, and they are some of my favorite folks to see at these swap fests because I always need knobs. Now I couldn't find the knobs for this radio at that swap fest. However, afterwards I took photos I found online, and I contacted Julie McCall, aka Radio Pup, and she found knobs that were just about perfect for this. Well, I mean, they're the right color and style and such, but the printing on them, I think we've got one duplicate. So we've got a volume control. We have radio phono. I don't know if that's quite right for this model. We've got tune for tuning, so that will probably go on there. Some of the spring clips fell out of these. Yeah. And this, boy, it's hard to read. I think it says on-off tone or something like that. Anyways, it's hard enough to read the lettering, so I'm not concerned. At least they're all the same color, and they have the right concentric bullseye knobs on them. They should all have metal collars on the back as well to reinforce. A couple of them fell off. Oh good, they're all there. All four are present and accounted for. Cool. Alrighty, and let's see. There probably were labels on these buttons long ago, but they are gone now, so there's just some dust and dirt down in there. I think these are presets. They don't do anything right now, they just bottom out. Alrighty, let's take a look at the schematic next. Hey, something I wanted to touch on briefly, especially for those of you new to the channel. If you see me introduce an item, I've already determined that it's going to be restored, or at least I'm going to do my darndest to get it restored. In other words, I've already vetted it. I've already inspected it. I've already decided that it's worthy of restoration, that it can be restored. So I'm pretty darn sure we're going to get this radio working. Now, assuming this is the right schematic, it does use the dreaded Loctile tubes. We'll get through it. So as I mentioned, there are a number of different models: 70, 20, 21, 54. Actually, maybe this is a 7054. We'll figure that out in a moment. So I got this info from Nostalgia Air, which was a great resource. It's free online. They're basically scans of the rider's service info. So you see it here on every page. It says John F. Rider, and then I think it says courtesy Nostalgia Air. Rider was a publisher that would publish compendiums of service info every year for a bunch of different model radios. Let's see, here's the layout. So apparently it's not entirely Loctile. Well, I think a 35 Y4 might be octal and not loctile. We'll find out soon enough. So we've got a really tiny parts list. Info on how to order parts from Sears. Well, probably can't do that anymore. Schematics, dial string diagrams, probably stuff about presets. Here's a variation using all octal tubes. Maybe that's an older version, so we'll have to see what we have. Yeah, there's a schematic for the octal version. Yeah, so we got to dig in there to see what exactly do we have. And that's not uncommon. After World War II, they were cranking this stuff out, and they would use whatever parts they could get their hands on in bulk. It's not uncommon to see radios where there were maybe 3 different types of output tubes used at different incarnations. Alright, so we do have the back, which is another nice plus, kind of an alligator faux leather look to it. The line cord's been cut off. It was probably all crunchy and nasty anyways. I think it's got a loop antenna attached to the back. Let us see. All 4 screws are present. Again, that's what the appeal of this was to me. One, I hadn't worked on anything quite like it before. It's kind of a nifty design, and it was all there. Was being the key word. But it shall all be there again. And I'll keep my eyes open for a better set of knobs someday, maybe. Once we get this back off, there are some labels down here, so we'll know exactly what model this is. There's a little bit of scuffing up on the top. We'll clean that up too in a bit. So let's see. Yeah, it does it. Oh, you know, I can't recall if I ever took the back off of this, or maybe it was already disconnected when I bought it. So this, unlike other radios you see me work on, you don't need to attach an external antenna to this. It's got a built-in loop antenna, and it's pretty critical to the operation of the radio. It's got an impedance match and stuff like that. So you kind of need to have that. Now we'll have to figure out how exactly it hooked up. We do have the Loctile version. Oh well. So if you don't know what a Loctile is, if you don't know what an octal is, let's discuss. Get this out. There we go. So, let's see if is there an octal tube in here that we can compare it to. That's a Loctile. They're all Loctiles. Hang on. Okay, that is an octal tube. It's got 8 pins and a locking key. Made millions of them. Very common type of tube based that we encounter. This is a Loctile. Also has 8 pins, and functionally there are generally equivalents of every octal to a Loctile. Best to my knowledge, the reason these exist is for car radios. Perhaps the military. They call them Loctiles because they lock into the base. They've got this snap ring around the bottom. You know, the sockets look sort of like an octal socket, but they're not quite. The reason people hate them is they are finicky. They can be tough to snap in and get out, as I'm struggling to put it back in, and the sockets tend to break. Oh, why can't I get this back? Oh, I'm going the wrong way. Now you can see this socket's already got chips in it. So putting them in isn't that bad. Getting them out can be tricky. I believe the trick is, unless there's a bump on the base, you push directly away from that bump. Or do you tip it towards the bump? I always forget. I think you tip away from the bump. And if you're lucky, it comes out. I think they're nifty looking. I think it was an interesting idea. It's just the execution wasn't that good. Another confusing thing about them. Like this is a 14Q7. Generally they all start with 7 or 14. Whereas this is a 25L6. For octals, that's the voltage. This runs on 25 volts AC on the filament. This does not run on 14 volts. This is a 12.6 volt tube. The ones that start with 7 are a 6.3 volt tube. They use 7 and 14, so you immediately know it's a Loctile when you see that part number. Yeah, that's confusing. Okay. Well, let's get a better look in here. There's a nice layer of dust on everything. But it looks like it's done a pretty good job of preservation. I don't see any corrosion. It's cool. It looks like all the labels still are here. For best reception, always use recommended Silvertone aerial kit. Always retube with Silvertone tubes. Oh no, we've got a tongue saw. Somebody didn't retube with Silvertone tubes. They are guaranteed to give you perfect satisfaction for 1 full year. Interesting. It's a question I get asked on, and is how long do tubes last? Well, of course, it depends on how much you use the device, but also, to some extent, the quality of the manufacturer as well. Well, they're saying you're going to get 1 year, and there's no stipulations about how often you use it. But hey, I've gotten radios from the 30s that still have some of their original tubes left, and they still work. No idea how much it was used, but they can last a very, very long time. Caution with electrical outlet cord. Okay, they're warning about the shock damage. potential shock hazard here. Assembled at plant number 2. Somebody has penciled in the tube numbers, even though there's a chart on the side. Maybe it's so when they were on the workbench they would know what went where. Oh, let's see. Pardon my head while I try to suss out the model number. It is a 7054. Okay, this is a model 7054. That is for sure. We can see this better when I get the chassis out. There is a very nifty, detailed label in here with not only a tube layout, but a bunch of info about the exact model number and a bunch of stuff about Sears Roebuck and Co. and patents and licensing and so on. Neat. I don't think I ever pulled this chassis out after I got it. Alright, well, no time like the present. I can see this does have some type of rubberized shock mount. The Philco 90 I worked on, but they are rock hard. Assuming these were rubber. Maybe that's wood. Maybe those are wood bumpers. Either way, they're as hard as wood. Okay, so let's get a little padding up here. Put this thing on its side and see how do I get this out. Of course, not having a transformer means it doesn't weigh very much. Alright, just a bunch of screws. A whole bunch of screws. So these wood screws, I presume, hold the cabinet together. But then we've got 2 rings of screws. I'm guessing the outer ones are for the chassis, but what are the inner ones for? That's... well, we're about to find out. Not the really proper size screwdriver, but it's what I have here, so that's what I'm going to use. And these screws are pretty loose. Before I look at the chassis, let's check out what are those extra screws for. I guess they hold the bottom of this thing, because this looks like the bottom of this cabinet is kind of thick. Well, it seems like it's all kind of glued and solid together, so what the heck do those screws, what do those screws even do? I could try to take them out, I suppose, and see what happens. This is quite dirty. We have a little piece of paper, maybe there's something exciting on it. Yeah, how about that? It's probably the previous owner, or some owner in the past. Mendota, Illinois. I have been there. Been a while, but I have been there. Oh yeah, we got some nice cobwebs and stuff. Oh, hey, there's labels on both sides. Oh, and a full-on schematic. Jeez. Alright, everything's very tiny and it's kind of dark in the cabinet, but I will do my best to give you a peek at this stuff. So on one side there is the tube layout, and then all the RMA, UL, Sears and Roebuck, part number, chassis number. Consumes what, a whole 35 watts. All that good stuff. On the other side, boy, it's tiny, but there is a full schematic. And, oh, parts list, parts locator. I mean, jeez. With that in the cabinet, I don't know how useful that would be unless you get a magnifying glass and somehow get your head inside the cabinet. But if you could pop that out and enlarge it, that is all very useful info. Luckily, I've got the scanned service info to go off of, because I can't really make that out myself. Now let's get to the good stuff, the chassis. Right away, I like what I see very much, and what is that? These 2 IF cans. They have trimmer caps on top for doing the alignment. This type does not get silver mica disease. That's more common with the types that have a variable slug, and they have caps down at the bottom that can corrode and start shorting out, and they're a pain in the butt to fix. You don't have to worry about that. I mentioned about the classic All-American 5. Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tubes. what's the 6th tube used for? RF amp on the front end. This makes it a little bit superior radio, theoretically, if they did their homework well. This should give us some more gain. More classic All-American 5 wouldn't have that. The antenna would just go right into the converter tube. They do have some shields on several of the tubes, which is just some like aluminum foil inside of a cardboard tube. Cheap way to do some shielding, for sure. We've got one electrolytic on top, isolated from the chassis, so let's take a look at the schematic. Is this a hot chassis? No, it's not. It's a floating chassis. How do I know? The chassis is this little ground symbol here. There is the AC coming in. And on the switch, the negative just goes to a line. That's just going to be wiring underneath the chassis. And so, less of a shock hazard, but it's still there, so you should use an isolation transformer when you work on it. We'll talk more about that in a bit. Now let's see the exciting underneath. Oh, whew, it's a little tight under there because of the preset mechanism. It looks, basically I would say it's all original. Maybe one cap has been replaced. There is one blue cap, a sealed tight up at the top. The rest are yellow. I can't quite tell from the soldering job if it's original or not. It's certainly very old. That's amusing. I wonder if that was to protect that cap from shorting out against the cabinet. Yeah, it must have been. I've never seen that before. It's like a little condom on the capacitor end. Cute. There is our variable cap, much smaller than the Philco 90, again, that I worked on recently. It's got 3 sections. I'm sure one is a local oscillator and 2 are for bandpass filters, or an antenna filter and a bandpass filter, something like that. Alright, so these push buttons, what do they do? Why are they not doing anything right now? Okay, so there's a lever, there's a spring, there's this paddle thing. Oh, I'm just weak. Okay, it does actually work. Alright, so they have to push this paddle, which turns the whole tuning mechanism. Flexing the chassis. I gotta back off a little there. Wow! No doubt a little bit of lubrication will help with that. Oh yeah, because geez, when you're doing that, it's moving not only the whole cap, but it's moving the dial pointer too, so there's a lot going on. I don't want to... Alright, I'm going to stop messing with that because I don't want to stress anything out. We'll get in there, we'll clean up the bearings, we'll lubricate stuff. It's pretty nifty. Looks like it's made out of like copper-plated steel or something. No corrosion anywhere. Or no significant corrosion. Very cool. Very cool. Very restorable. Alright, so what are we going to do? We could try turning it on as is, and maybe I will. I'll get out my PR57, which is a combination variac, an isolation transformer. It's got a fuse, it's got a circuit breaker, so it kind of, you may have heard of a dim bulb tester. I don't need that because that acts as one for me. What do I hope to gain by just powering it up? Well, just maybe we get some sound out of it. If it plays, that's great, because then it's just all kind of downhill from there, hopefully. Alright, let's replace the line cord. We'll have to make this a bit neater later on. It's got a strain relief. I think I might have bought some reproductions a long time ago. Please ignore the dogs. That's what they do. So, line cord comes in here, unpolarized, goes through a strain relief, then they've got some insulating tubing over it, and then it goes down to 2 tie points on the rectifier tube. Not that the AC line goes directly to 2 elements on the rectifier tube. They're just using those as tie points. I'm sure those are unused pins, or at least one of them is. Oh, this is old and crunchy. We won't be reusing any of this stuff. I dug out the remains of the old line cord, put a new one through, tied a knot in it for some quick strain relief, tied that into the tube sockets pins 1 and 5, and tacked in a new Type X, actually Type X2 safety cap, 0.015 microfarad, closest I had to a 0.05. I really don't think the value is all that critical. So let's plug it in, try turning it on, and see what happens. Alrighty, I popped on all 4 knobs. I have it plugged into my PR57, which is currently turned off. The radio is off. Let's give it a try. I've got this in current mode, so if you see that needle move, it shows how much current is being drawn. What do I think is going to happen? Probably nothing, but maybe we'll get a hum out of it. Oh, it actually turned on, and the pilot light came on. Oh, it's hard to tell with these loctals. Yeah, they're glowing. One globe is glowing. They're all glowing. So in series. Wow. I have no antenna. I was not expecting that to work as well as it did. Now you'll see an earbud seller list this now as working radio. Just because it turned on, nothing blew up, and a light lit up. No, it's not working. It just turned on. It powered up, I guess you could say. Now this antenna, there are 3 lugs on the back of this, but I have 2 wires. So what is going on with that? Oh, I see. Yeah, you can hook up an external antenna, but you still need to have the internal antenna, I believe. And that goes through this cap over to that. I think we want the outer 2. Well, let's see what happens. I don't think it matters which of these goes to what part of the antenna. Kind of forms, not kind of, but I believe it does form a tank circuit. The RF amps, that's why it's pretty critical to have the correct antenna. Okay, here we go again. Now notice how dim that light is at first, and then it gets brighter. That's what it's supposed to do. It's kind of wired into 2 filaments, and the 2 filaments are cold, they draw more current, and as they warm up and they draw less, this gets more current going through it. Okay. I hear a little bit of something. Hey, I guess we're done. And the maddening thing with this, by the way, that loud hum, that's the PR57, it's not the radio.
Hanging Christmas lights in the
radio actually sounds fantastic. So here's the thing. I'll go through, I'll recap this whole thing doing alignment. I bet it won't sound any better. I bet at least it won't noticeably sound any better than it does right now.
No arrests have been made as the investigation
its own control works.
The state of Illinois is working to help communities.
That's pretty impressive for an uncapped radio, pre-war radio.
Proclamation for 28 counties in central and southern Illinois.
There could be a cap that's about to let loose. Electrolytic cap might be getting toasty. It's under a cardboard cover, so I can't easily tell if it's getting warm or not.
That includes officers did not offer immediate medical assistance to Wright after he was shot, and
I don't have any proof that he does. But the thought makes me realize. So this person,
I've got it plugged straight into the wall now, so you can hear it without all that hum from the PR57.
Action not based on the ephemeral and passing things of this world.
Boy, that really sounds good.
As a free gift, and
Yeah, I was thinking I was overdue for an easy one. Now, we still have plenty to talk about and take a look at. For one, making this a little bit safer, so we put the switch. We use a polarized plug. We'll put the switch on the hot side. We'll add a fuse.
Arizona Sports 98.7 FM with that call. By the Calamari had a combine.
There's a little bit of a hum
characters and have
on there too. That may improve with the recap.
Gift guaranteed to be loved.
You can hear more between stations. Yeah, that's definitely a hum in
And
there.
save over 50% when you order the perfect gift pack.
this late.
And through the night with clear to partly cloudy skies, cool conditions.
Quote.
I did a little more research about this model, and I have to correct myself. This is from 1947, not 1941 or 42, like that service info indicated. Maybe there was an earlier version of it. I'm not sure. I thought this looked a little bit too modern for something pre-war. So yeah, this is definitely post-war. I've made some progress cleaning using a brush and a small vacuum cleaner. I think I'm going to need to get a little more aggressive though to clean some areas. But even so, it's considerably better now than it was. Alright, I'm going to go down to my parts store and dig up all new parts. I'll be using all 630 volt rated metallized polyester film capacitors to replace all these paper caps. And I'll get some, I guess, at least 250 volt caps to replace the electrolytics. The originals are often 160 volts, but I would definitely go at least 250 just for that extra overhead or safety margin. It's nice to have. There's plenty of room to put them in. Now let's see about where do we want to put the new caps? You know, years ago I used to restuff a lot, not so much anymore. Especially not something like this. I think it's way more trouble than it's worth. On the other hand, there is a lot of stuff going to that capacitor. That's this guy down in here. So somehow we need. Yeah, and I can see why part of that is as I said, this chassis is not ground. But the lugs on this CAN capacitor are, and they put a whole bunch of stuff into those lugs. So, man, if I was to take that cap out and replace it with a terminal strip, I got a whole bunch of stuff to hook back up. So, you know what? We're going to try something else here. We are going to try to cut this open from the top side. Let me get the camera down here. So we need to get this cardboard cover off. There's usually a glob of wax or glue or something at the top that's holding this on. Underneath is an aluminum can. We're going to cut that open, get the guts out. We're going to drill some holes and run leads for the new caps down and leave all the existing wiring alone. And then assuming we got this off intact, we can slide it back over and hide all the new stuff inside. I've been going around and pulling the tubes out and cleaning them, and we'll be testing them. And it turns out that you can pretty much get these out just by pulling straight up. Most or every other Loctile tube socket I can recall encountering, you really had to tip it towards the key to get the tube out. Even so, I think every single one of these sockets, maybe the 7C6, has got damage. I'm cleaning the tubes. I obliterated the tongue sole on the 35Y4. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. getting all that tar goo. At least on the tubes I can say it will make some difference because it won't smell when you play the radio. This one doesn't really smell too much, but I haven't played it a whole lot. But yeah, a radio that's been around a smoker for a long time, when you play it, you are reminded that it was a smoker's radio. I've been careful on the Silvertone branded tubes to not wipe that off. I'm curious to know if anybody else has encountered Loctile tubes that don't have a bump on the base. I'm making some progress with the recap. I've replaced 3 paper caps up top so far. Now, one issue I'm having is this is not very stable. A lot of the items you see me work on before are larger radio chassis with a power transformer that stands pretty stable and firm while you work on it, or TV chassis, same deal. Heavier, larger. So when you get to work with little tabletop radio chassis, or relatively little, it can be a bit of an issue because you can't flip it over because of the speaker sticking out the top, and there's really no good way to set it down to work on it. So it just so happens that I recently received this, which is a custom chassis stand. I traded actually my duplicate Philco 90 tube shield, the 3-section large one with the diagram on the side, for this from another member of the Philco forum. I don't know if this is his original design or whatnot. I don't know much about it. I know there are a whole bunch of parts in here. I know it's adjustable. So here's a basic idea. I believe it sits on top of your workbench, and you can slide these 2 pieces in and out. And there are various, I believe, attachments on the side to connect up to your chassis. This does not appear to have any really any holes or anything in the sides, so I'm not exactly sure how it's going to attach, but we shall figure it out. I'm glad there is at least some documentation in here, so I'm not completely in the dark. And I've seen other guys make their own out of plywood and bits of hardware and whatnot. It's just something I never really got around to doing. I just kind of muddled my way around. Alright. Oh, okay, so there are sort of cutouts on these side pieces, so I'm guessing you can kind of hook the chassis in there. Neat. I'm sure I'll figure it out as it comes together. And there it is. Very, very cool, handy, nifty device. I regret not looking into one years ago, because there's a few advantages that I'm seeing immediately. One, it's at a very comfortable 45-degree angle. I'm used to working on chassis either being completely horizontal or completely vertical. Either way, I'm having to crouch at odd angles to get it at things, and the lighting isn't so great. This, the angle's great, and it also gets it up off the bench. So I just a slight lean forward, and I'm right in the radio, just like you are right now. The lighting, much better, because the lighting is just coming in from the overhead light, no shadows. This should make life a lot easier. Well, or at least radio restoration's a lot easier. Now, in terms of the work I've done so far, I replaced 3 paper caps. I'm using all axial plastic film caps, using a combination of J-hooks and pigtails, trying not to stress or overheat the existing joints. The existing wiring isn't the greatest quality wiring, so I don't want to stress it. Some of the wiring down in here, what looks like plastic, is actually rubber, and it's rock hard. If I move those wires or stress them, that insulation is liable to crack and flake off, exposing bare wire. Don't want to have to rewire this. Also, this insulation, it's like sort of It's cloth. Underneath that there's probably some type of plastic. It's not the greatest. They were a little sloppy in places. For example, down here, there is a wire. It's going right to the AC line, and there's about 1/2 inch of bare wire just hanging out there, very, very close to the chassis. I think you can see now that there's like an inner dark plastic insulation covered by a cloth insulation. I'm going to have to disconnect that and slide some insulation over it, or cut the wire back so there's less of it exposed. Otherwise, things have been pretty easy sailing. All the resistors are within spec. Don't have to replace any of them. The capacitors are fairly easy to get at. We have 6 more to do. I will blow through those. We'll try powering it up again. And assuming all goes well, we'll move on to the electrolytic filter cap. The recapping is done, and I'm happy to say it was uneventful. Now I just hooked the loop antenna back up, and we're going to try powering it back up. So here we go, radio on, pilot light lit up. Oops.
These darker experiences.
Still got plenty of hum.
B is now you're getting to the core.
Hey, what do you know? My trusty heat gun I've been using for more than a decade crapped out, completely shorted, so that's going in the garbage. I said it switched to using a hair dryer, which does not get as hot, but eventually, with patience, I was able to get this warm enough. I was able to slowly twist the top off. So all that black substance there, that's basically tar. That's what was holding the cardboard cover on. Cleans up really easily with paint thinner or acetone, and to a lesser extent isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to clean some of that crud off, and then we're going to cut it open down somewheres around here. Don't want to leave it up too high, because then it's too hard to get the junk out down below. We don't want to go too low, because we want to leave some material there so we can retain the strength of it and put the cover back over. The idea is to cut it open, get all the junk out, drill some new holes, and put the capacitors down from the top, and then attach the leads to the lugs down below. It'll make more sense once I get this apart. Also, I was playing around with trying to clean the chassis off. It turns out that it's easier to physically remove it than to chemically remove it. And by that I mean scraping it off. It's really baked on there. And beautiful clean metal down below. But just using your fingernail or a wooden scraper, like a popsicle stick or something, the stuff just starts popping off. Again, that would be an awful lot of work to get this all off. Now, I did get a tip from a viewer I have not tried before, which is to use Gojo pumice-free hand cleaner. He said to apply it and wait till it turns clear and then wipe it off. I'm going to give that a try. I've never done it before in a chassis. I've used it to clean the wood cabinet, and we're going to be using that to clean the cabinet as well. But I'm curious to see what it can do with this. This is the stuff I'm talking about. The original formula. It's getting harder and harder to find. I don't know about the newer formulations. I haven't tried them. I know this stuff works on wood, on plastic. It's safe. I mean, it's hand cleaner. It's not going to hurt your skin, certainly. So it's this white goo, and it turns clear. And it will get anything off your hands, basically, and it does generally a pretty good job on any other kind of crud. I gotta say the Gojo is working the best of anything I've tried so far. It's a little bit cooler today, so it's taking a bit of time. It's been about 5 minutes on here It's taking a bit of time to kind of dissolve the crud, but yeah, it most definitely does work. So that's cool. All right, I'll let that sit for a little bit longer, wipe it off, and then let's tackle that cap. And you may have noticed I've changed locations. Yeah, I'm down in the basement now. The old workbench, which is soon to be retired. I've been doing some messy stuff now, so I'd rather do it down here than in the nicer room upstairs. Wow, I let that sit about 5 minutes and wiped it off, and everything just came right off. That is a fantastic technique. Thank you to the viewer that suggested it. I'll try to look up your name so I can give credit where credit is due. And I've got the cap open. What did I do? Sorry, I don't have a tripod down here, but I got the edge of the blade next to the can, just went back and forth till it weakened, then I got the point in there, and then kind of worked my way around like a can opener. It's still attached a little bit on the back side, but it's open enough that we can just get it open. And wow, yeah, that is really dried out inside. That's why it's lost capacity. That should all be liquid paste inside, and it's just dried up at the bottom. This is all pretty dried up top too. If I had tested this, it would have had significantly less capacity than it's supposed to, and there's also a lot of corrosion around those aluminum plates inside there. So I drilled a hole on the inside, kind of in a triangle pattern, right next to each of those 3 lugs, and then put a 4th one in off to the side for ground. And as soon as that was done, it occurred to me, didn't really need to do that. The goal was to get the old cap out of the circuit. I really don't care about hiding the new caps, because we've got glaring bright yellow new caps down below. Obviously it's been recapped. So who are we fooling? What's the sense in hiding the new electrolytics when nothing else has been restuffed? So just as I had before, where I tack them across the terminals, I can do that a little more securely. In fact, that is what I'm going to do. But at least I got to show you guys, if you did want to hide the new caps inside the old cylinder, this is a way to do it. So once you've got those holes, it's a matter of figuring out what goes to what. So we've got our common negative, that goes down that hole. And let's say this is one of the 47s, we put it down like that. While we're in Gojo mode, let's also take care of the top of the cabinet. Sides on the front are pretty clean, the top is bad. Be very careful not to get it on the grill cloth. Grill cloth could be taken out. There are 3 screws holding in a pretty thick piece of wood that has a grill cloth mounted to it, I assume. So, could be taken off, but I want to give you a quick demo of what Gojo can do for a classic lacquer wood finish. I mean, that's all you have to do. This will not hurt the finish, unlike any chemicals or other wood products. So yeah, there are of course plenty of furniture polishes and whatnot on the market. However, some of them, like notably Pledge, has silicone oil in it, which, yeah, will make the finish look nice, but that oil gets between any fine cracks in the finish, works its way down into the wood, and basically contaminates it. Just like oil and water don't mix, once that oil gets into the wood, if you were to ever refinish it or try to maybe apply some clear coat over it to spruce up the old finish, it will beat up. The silicone oil will repel lacquer, and probably, well, no, it doesn't repel shellac. So if you ever do have that problem, that's the one thing, if you're lucky, that can save you, is create a barrier between the new finish and the contamination with shellac. It's not something you want to deal with. It's not fun. Don't use Pledge. Don't use any furniture polish that has silicone oil in it and stick with the classics like beeswax. There is the goo. That's all you gotta do is spread it around until it turns clear and wipe it off. And it does a fantastic job of cleaning off all the old dirt and grime and the old wax and oil and any preservatives or polishes that may have been put on here. It won't get rid of the silicone oil, but it will get rid of all the old waxes and whatnot. And dirt, of course. So I'll clean it off a little bit more. If it still looks like it's dirty, I'll do another round. I think I've now done 6 rounds and it's still coming away dirty. You may notice I'm just using paper towels for now. A cotton cloth, an old t-shirt works great too, but there's just so much goo. I'd be going through a lot of t-shirts, so maybe for the final pass I'll get out a nice soft cloth, but for now it's just going to be the cheapest stuff I can get my hands on. And it's just as well that the electrical restoration was a breeze, because this cleaning is going to take a while. I'm going to pause now and take off the grill cloth and try to get off this plastic escutcheon. I'm slopping this Gojo all over. I don't want to. I'm lucky enough I haven't gotten any on it so far. I did not think I would need to do this much cleaning, to be honest. Assuming I can get this off, I want to polish it up. I'm pretty sure it's tenite plastic. I'll use some Novus number 2 on that. I mean, this is the standard go-to stuff that most restorers use. Gojo to clean cabinets, and well, and now chassis. That's a new one on me, and then Novus number 2 for all plastics. As I had hoped, removing the grill cloth was just as easy as taking 3 wood screws out. What was I saying about it looking pretty clean? Yeah. So, around the edges where it was protected, that's the original color. Yeah, it has gotten discolored quite a bit. But, when it's installed, you don't see that, so you wouldn't know. There was one occasion where I had a TV that had a large grill cloth, maybe 3-4 times the size, which had some staining on it. I was able to carefully clean it. I don't remember exactly what I used. It was quite a few years ago now, but it is possible to clean grill cloth, is my point. And it could be quite possible to just peel this off. They might have used some basic adhesive that easily comes away from the wood. I also notice there's a bit of a sag on it now. I wonder if that happened when I took it out and it got released a little bit. Looks like the glue may have come away a little bit here and it kind of pulled in this way, but we could take care of that. I'm not going to attempt to clean this. I just want to point out that potentially you could peel this off the wood and clean it very carefully. You're not going to throw this in the washing machine, but spray it with some type of cleaner and blot it with paper towels, that kind of thing. Alright, now unfortunately the rest of it is held in by those evil speed nuts on the little plastic nubs sticking out there. Why are they evil? Because they push on and they don't come off. And if you try to take them off, they often break off the plastic post. They are rather stiff spring steel that has little metal spurs sticking out, and you push them on. To get them off, I've heard there's a special tool. I don't have one. I haven't seen one. I'm not entirely sure how it would work, that it wouldn't cause any damage. I've had some success using a Dremel tool and a cutoff wheel to cut the burrs off. A little less success trying to use some needle nose pliers to bend them away. Here and now, I'm not going to mess with it. This is all in such nice shape, I don't want to risk breaking those off. So I'll just have to work around it. So now that I realize I got to do quite a bit more cleaning with this, I'm going to clear off this area, put down a towel, and just really go to town on this cabinet. And if I get some Gojo in the plastic, it's not going to hurt it, so that's not really an issue. And now I can definitely clean that lip out there. Here it is, all cleaned up. it looks a lot cleaner. It looks nice, but it looks dry. It looks dull. So there's a few things we could do. I could clear coat it, as I mentioned earlier, but I don't want to do that. So I pulled out a number of products we could put on it. One, this wood cleaner and polish. That's what I used for the final pass on this, and look how dull it is. This would work great on something with a good finish, a modern, fairly fresh finish, polyurethane or fresh glossy lacquer. It'd do a good job of cleaning it and leave a bit of a finish behind, or oil, wax. I guess this is actually wax-free. It would just be oil to make it look shinier, but it's not going to do much for a dull surface. Same deal with this Oz cream polish. So these are thin liquids. On a surface that's already in good shape and shiny, it will work well. Which leaves us with these two products. I mentioned this earlier, Feed and Wax. This will give it a nice mellow look, kind of glowing. It'll smell real nice. But beeswax is soft. You might have trouble with fingerprints, and it's not going to do a whole lot to make it shiny. It's not going to fill in the imperfections too much. There are a lot of fine scratches on this. There's some alligatoring. I want to fill at least some of that in. To do that, I need a hard wax. So we're going to go with this Johnson paste wax. I don't know if it's carnauba or something like that, but it's not beeswax. It's got a petroleum solvent. It's going to have a bit of an odor, but that goes away quickly. Take something like an old sock or an old t-shirt. Apply a little bit. You want a thin coat. Kind of just work it all in there in a circular pattern. I'll let it dry a bit and then buff it out with the grain. So, take a good look at it. Let's see how it looks after one pass of wax. Here it is after a couple passes of the floor wax. It's got a real nice shine to it now. Don't expect miracles. I mean, it is an old finish. It's got flaws in it, but it's got a little bit of a reflection now. Looks nice. And this doesn't really leave fingerprints, so that's cool. And that is as much as we can do with the cabinet. So let's turn our attention back to the chassis. Alright, back to the chassis. I have my electrolytics mounted. I ended up doing it both ways. I put one on the bottom and two on the top. So I didn't have to do any extension wires or anything elaborate. And I hope that should be obvious to somebody down the road that there are new electrolytics in here. Alright, what's left? This. Now, unfortunately, I don't think I have any strain reliefs. Another casualty of renovated radios not being around anymore. Other vendors might have had them at some point too. It was a rubber boot. It was exactly the same as the old strain reliefs. It was kind of a conical thing on both the inside and outside of the chassis. It looked just like the original did on this. But nobody makes them anymore. Nobody carries them anymore. I don't want to enlarge the hole to use a modern snap-in type. So for now, because I'm not giving up finding the right type, for now I'm going to just leave it tied in a knot, like so. Okay, could leave it like this, but I want to point some things out. The original schematic is kind of cramped and hard to follow where the AC line voltage comes in, so I took the liberties of redrawing it and rearranging things a bit. So this is our plug going to the wall with a non-polarized plug, so hot or neutral could be on either side. The way they currently have it, this cap, sometimes called death cap, the one that's going right across the AC line, is always in circuit. As long as there's a plug into the wall, there's voltage on that cap. the switch is actually on B-. If this was a hot chassis set, the side would just be going right to the chassis. It's not. It's floating, so it's a little bit safer. You can't get shocked just by touching the metal here. But that's still not the best way to do this. The other side just goes to a bunch of stuff. It goes to all the tube filaments. And that just continues around. There'd be 3 more, so there'd be total of 6 tube filaments. So that's just straight up filaments, and that goes around. You flip the switch, and the tubes light up. That's pretty simple. Where does the B+ come from? That's a little goofy. This is a rectifier tube. Got a filament, a cathode, and a plate. For the plate, it goes around through the pilot light, the number 47 bulb, and connects to this side. Provides a bit of a current limiting, basically. And off of the cathode, that's where that 18 ohm fusible resistor is. And then it goes to the filter cap. So this will help limit the current when the cap is discharged, to help protect that tube, as does this pilot lamp. So it's not horrible, but a few issues. One, it'd be nice to have this cap on the other side of the switch, so it's not always in circuit. 2, it would be nice to use a polarized plug and put the switch on the hot side. We might also want to add some type of fuse or inrush current limiting for the filament string. So here's another version I put together. So let's say we're going to go with a polarized plug. Neutral. We're just going to hardwire that to right to B-. No switch. We take that line filter cap, put it on the other side of the switch. We potentially add something here. We have a few options. We could just go with a fuse, like a 2 amp slow blow. We could go with just a resistor, like a 10 ohm 3 to 5 watt resistor. Or, ideally, we add a fusible resistor, which accomplishes everything. So what are we trying to do here? When the set is off, discharged, the tubes are cold, you flip this switch. Cold tube filaments have a low resistance. Current just goes shooting right through all 6 of those tubes. That can potentially shorten the life of them. So often you'll see a current inrush limiter added, a thermistor, or just a fixed resistor, just something to soften the blow when you turn it on. But this is also used for the B+. So it branches off through the rectifier tube and to the tube filaments. Now they do have some current limiting inherently because of this bulb, but anything you put here will also help out limit that current too. And we also have higher line voltages today, so putting some resistance in here will help prolong the life of the tubes. It'll cut the voltage across them down a bit because we have higher line voltages now, and it provides a bit of a soft start. They do make fusible resistors. If you go to Mauser Electronics or DigiKey Electronics online and go to the search box and type in fusible resistor, you will find some. They come in low ohm values like 4.7 ohms, 6.8 ohms, 10 ohms, and typically rated for 2 watts. They are designed, if there is excessive current for an excessive amount of time, to burn open, and they are flame proof. They act as fuses. But assuming current stays below that, they just act as regular resistors and they limit the inrush current. So I highly recommend adding either a resistor and a fuse or thermistor in series, or add a fusible resistor. So what do we have to work with in here? Well, we've got our line coming in. It's going right to a couple pins on this tube socket, and our new across the line cap is wired directly into those wires, and then our power switch is up over here. So I'm going to disconnect this stuff, take this cap out, trace out the wiring for that power switch, take my line cord and use my ohm meter and figure out which is the neutral and which is the hot. The wires are just brown, there's no markings, so you have to check the resistance. The narrow one is hot, the wide one is neutral. Once I know which wire is the neutral, I'm just going to take it and wire it directly into the B- bus. And then we're going to figure out how this power switch is wired in and flip it over to the plus side, and we're going to relocate this cap to go from B- to the other side of the switch. And I'm going to dig up a fusible resistor. I finished with the modifications. I'll go over what I did. First, I identified the neutral wire on my new AC line cord, and I put that directly to B-. I used one of the outer can lugs on the old electrolytic can. That is going to B- in the radio. The hot side I have going to pin 5 on the rectifier tube socket. That has no internal connection. It's a useful tie point. To that same pin 5 I attached one side of the power switch. The return side of the power switch goes to pin 3, which is also unused. I added a 6.8 ohm fusible resistor from pin 3 to pin 1, pin 1 being the heater and the plate essentially, and that completes the B+ circuitry. I then put in my X2 cap with one side again going to that B- on the old electrolytic can. And I don't know if this is exactly technically correct, but my wires were not long enough to reach all the way over directly to the hot side. So I have my line cap going to the other side of my fusible resistor. So in other words, I have it wired like this, rather than having this cap attached on that side. It is actually going to kind of form a bit of a low-pass filter. I don't know if that's going to make any difference. We'll see in a moment. Also, before anybody mentions it, what I did isn't technically correct. The pilot lamp does not go directly to this point. There is a tap on the heater of the rectifier tube, intentionally designed for that pilot light to be attached to. There's a little bit of resistance between these 2 points. Alright, let us hook the antenna back up and turn this thing on and make sure that everything is still working. Now let's make sure it still works.
WBBM News Time 10:46. Now a look at sports with
Excellent.
a little good news for the Bulls. Some players coming back from COVID. WBBM very limited paradigm of what it. You want it? The entire Kim Commando 3-hour national radio show on your schedule.
9149. I'm going to get to the phone in a second. Black and Abdallah. Weeknights at 6 ESPN.
I'm not hearing any hum anymore. Now, a moment ago I was recording and it was really noisy, and I think I finally determined the source of the noise, and I think in past videos I've encountered the same problem. I didn't know what it was. So let's see if I can recreate the problem.
Programs to serve their community.
Yep. Hear that noise? That's the charger for my video camera.
And it can make a lot.
Yep, I just unplugged it. Wow, that explains a lot, because I think I've heard that a number of times on other projects. Excellent.
Medicines, but taking too much.
I'm calling this done, and you know, I'm not inclined to bother doing the alignment because it seems to be working fantastically. This is pulling in more stations, I think, than any other radio I currently have that's working. Pretty sure these knobs just push on, so let's Let's try getting one out. Oh, much easier than I realized. Oh, okay. And that's how you do the preset. You adjust that screw. Yeah, I see. And that control, yeah. That controls how far this will push when you push the preset down. The mechanism is still pretty stiff. So let's see. Do I have a type of screwdriver handy? Yes, here we go. So if I turn this, probably hasn't been turned in decades. There we go. Oh, no, that's just a clamp, I think. Does that just loosen the whole thing up? Yeah, okay, and now you can adjust this bit. Alright, let me zoom in here a little bit for you. So I think just tightening and loosening this controls this outer part that compresses this inner part. And with that loosened up, now I can freely move this. So I would think you tune this to the station you want. Like I'll say I want that station. And then you push this down so it's on that station. And then you tighten this up. So I put that on 720. Let's see, I'll do another station. And I'll push this one down. And right on 720. It's actually much easier than I thought it would be. So you tune in the station you want with the tuning dial. Pop the knob off, loosen up the screw, push down this assembly till it's flat against this sort of rocker panel, and then tighten the screw down. I'm going to pop out all these knobs and give them a good cleaning because, like everything else, they're filthy. Knobs cleaned up very nicely. Warm soapy water, toothbrush, and then a little compressed air to dry them out. And while doing so, I noticed there's a little slot cut into the side of each knob, and that is how you put in the station label. So I took a little sliver of paper here and wrote on it, and you can slide it in like so. It's a little too long. I imagine there was some type of clear plastic that went over it at some point. And I noticed there's also a little hole, so maybe something snapped in. I don't know. I mean, it's long gone, whatever was there. But, you know, hey, that'll do for now. So let's put these back on. I also finished lubing up the mechanism. It's a little better. Certainly this moves more easily now. Presets. Yep, that works better. I've reinstalled the chassis, and I was careful when I installed it to make sure that the control shafts were centered in their opening and there was clearance for the presets. And I've of course reinstalled the grill cloth. Only thing left cosmetically is the dial cover. I looked around online for reference photos, and as near as I can make out, it was plastic. There are quite a few reference photos, so that was a good thing. And I tried to look for reflections off of it, and it looks like it was a bit of kind of like a bulbous or protruding thin clear plastic. And that was pretty common for tabletop radios of the late 30s into the early 40s. What's also pretty common is that plastic does not hold up over time. It warps, it cracks, it disintegrates. I'm sure that's what happened to this one. Luckily, there are, well, I hope there are still two options. One is to buy a reproduction. Well, there was a gentleman had a website, I think it's just called dialcovers.com or something to that effect. And he carried them for all the common models, and this would qualify, so I would imagine he has it. And if you didn't have it, I think maybe for a small setup fee he would make one for you. The other option is to make it yourself, which luckily isn't that difficult. What do you need? Well, you need a block of wood that's the same size as your opening, and you need a depression that the block just fits into with a slight gap around it. What are you doing? You're making your own mold, your own vacuum form kind of mold. But you don't really need a vacuum. All you need is a little bit of heat and a little bit of pressure. So imagine you've got a depression, just that size, and a piece of wood cut to a depth of about so, 1/4 of an inch. Put a sheet of clear plastic over it. Get your heat gun or hair dryer ready and heat it up. So acrylic will work fine. And then put your wood block on top. The heat will soften up the plastic and push down on that block till it bottoms out. Let it cool, pop it out. And if you're lucky, it would have depressed the plastic and the front surface will be defect free. Trim out the excess, pop it in. Clear plastic sheets is readily available at hobby shops and doesn't cost a whole lot. Really the only factor is your time it takes to cut out the mold. Maybe we'll save that for a future video, but for now I'm just going to reinstall the back and let's give it a final listen. I'm quite pleased with how nicely this cabinet cleaned up. When I first saw it at that Radio Fest, I thought it had some potential, but I didn't think it would clean up quite this nicely.
And also, you don't have to worry about your luggage getting lost, as the chances of it getting
I
lost.
actually didn't realize it was quite so filthy, but all that filth did a great job of preserving it. I really like that design.
I think so.
I think it's my new favorite tabletop radio.
Worth the price.
There's one little problem.
Don't rush your trip. Give yourself a bumper.
I wasn't going to mention it because it's a little embarrassing, but I want to keep it honest. So, I want to call this a design flaw on their part. The line cord needs to go through the back of the radio.
Figure out what you want to do with that destination if you
It's really stupid on their part. So, I need to pull the whole radio apart, disconnect the line cord, run it through the hole in the back, and then put it all back together. I don't know if I want to do that right now. Not if I can get away with it. Oh man, there is no gap anywhere around the back to run out that line cord. Why did they do that? It fits so snugly in around the back of the cabinet. There's no gap. You can sneak out the line cord. Ugh. Hey, maybe I'm not such a dummy after all. There is a slit in the back, right below that hole. I bet that's how they did it originally. Now, my only issue with that is this back is kind of stiff. I'm very wary of flexing it enough to get the cord in there, so I'm going to stick with my original thought of I'm just going to put the back on and leave the screw in that corner out and leave it gapped until I can find that proper strain relief and work on the dial cover. So at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, we will be getting back to this set and finishing it off. I hope you enjoyed this restoration video on a Silvertone 7054 from 1941.